Great, thanks, Blake. Something I wanted to talk a little bit more about is, being a little bit more transparent about who Tiny is and what we do. One of the fun things that we do every year, it's been a tradition for 2 years now, is that we bring together our very distributed team into the offices we have down in Brisbane, Australia, and essentially do a 1 week long hackathon. So you see some of the team hanging out there. We get together on a whiteboard. We try and mix the teams up. So there's people from Sweden or Australia or the US all sort of working together on this. Do some rapid prototyping, work with the TinyMC APIs ourselves, which gives us some great feedback on what is good and what could be improved. And then at the end of the week, we present it and have some fun times whilst we're doing it as well. So the output of some of these things ends up finding their way to Tiny Labs, which is, you can find a link to that in the footer of the Tiny website there. Two things from last year were Tiny Sheets and a configurator. Tiny Sheets sort of gives you spreadsheet-like formulas inside regular tables inside TinyMCE. And then we have two things from this year, which is a Markdown and a media search tool, which are pretty cool. The Markdown tool has a sort of a split screen interface. So on one side, you can be typing plain text Markdown style things. And on the other side of the screen, it'll show up a rich text WYSIWYG kind of view. And you can edit in either panes, and you'll see either Markdown being created in real time, or as you type Markdown, you'll see the WYSIWYG rich text view being updated as well. So that's pretty neat, and actually something that we'd like to bring out as a plugin for people to use. So if you think this could be of use to you, let me know. And media search, which lets you go and find publicly accessible media files, so videos, images, GIFs, whatever you want to be able to use. We hook into some public domain search type stuff, such as Giphy or Pexels, so that your content authors would be able to find some inspired images or videos to insert into whatever they're creating. So again, we thought that was pretty cool. We would enter keyword and search out with things, and that actually helped drive the development of some of the UI components that you can use in your own plugin as well. So go check them out. If this is something you'd like to see made a reality, send us an email. Also like to do a quick plug for Product Week next year. We're already started planning for that, is to join along. We'd love to have some folks from the community, from customers, join us in Product Week, participate in some of the hackathons and learnings around the code base, actually make some contributions there. So mark your calendar, let us know if you're interested, and we'd be happy to send you information. This would be a much more intimate affair than your typical conference, and a whole lot of fun down under in Brisbane, Australia. So please mark your calendar and let us know. All right then. So that's the extent of our prepared content there. So we have plenty of time for questions here. So fire away if you have any questions, and I'll turn over to Lincoln here, who's been monitoring to see if we've got any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. We do have a couple here. Let's see, here's our first one. First question we have is, you talked about removing multiple toolbars in Tiny5 and then adding them back in. Why did you remove them in the first place?
So we thought there was a good case to be made about not cluttering the user interface. We've seen a lot of deployments of TinyMCE where they have multiple toolbars. Joomla is in fact one of them. And we prefer a more modern, streamlined user interface, as many design-oriented folks do these days. But clearly that doesn't suit every implementation. I mean, particularly inline, it made sense perhaps just to have a more compact set of toolbars by having them have two rows. So based upon community feedback, there was a lot of discussion on GitHub. We decided to bring multiple toolbars back, and here they are.
Great, awesome. All right, we have another question here. We mentioned our new word count API, but we were wondering if there are any other new APIs that might be available for developers to use.
That's a good question. I'll take that one again. I'll tell you what, instead of an API that might be coming out, I'll tell you about an API that's already available. We didn't include it in our presentation today, but we recently made available an editor mode API. And what I'll do is when we circulate the slides and the follow-up email from this webinar, I'll make sure to include a link to the documentation. But Andrew had mentioned that Advanced Code Editor is going to be moving inline in an upcoming release, and the editor mode API is what will allow the Advanced Code Editor to appear in line. Right now, one of the other things you can use the API for is to set the editor into a read-only mode. And of course, I'm sure in our audience, the developers, they can take a look at the API documentation and come up with lots of other cool use cases as well. So yeah, good question. Editor mode API is a new one to definitely check out. And yeah, we'll include the link to the documentation in that when we send around the follow-up email.
Great. All right. That was awesome. That looks like questions we have submitted here. So I will pass it back to you, gentlemen.
All right. Terrific. Thanks, Lincoln. Thanks to the webinar participants that asked a couple questions. Again, you can follow us on Twitter there at JoinTiny. Please reach out to us at team@tiny.cloud with any follow-up questions about anything you heard today. Any recommendations around the skins and icon packs that you'd like to see added in the future, documentation you'd like to see us take a look at, any of your thoughts on Tiny Labs, or anything at all, please drop us a line. Otherwise, on behalf of Lincoln, on behalf of Andrew, thank you very much for joining today, and look for a follow-up email from us with the slides from this presentation in the next day or so. All right, thanks again.
Great. Thank you.